Hey everybody, welcome back to Cosmic Life Astrology. Today we are talking about the Aquarius super full moon happening on August 19th. I do want to preface, if you hear my dog panting in the background or walking around in circles, just ignore her. She is freaking out over a thunderstorm, and I've tried to tape this a few times and I'm just going for it now and, letting her do what she needs to do to get through the thunderstorm. And I got to do what I got to do. Typical Mercury retrograde, and a full moon always can make the energy more watery. So it's not surprising that there's a thunderstorm happening during this time. I digress. Let's dive into the Aquarius full moon. We are currently in the most intense 2 weeks of 2024. And, this week is a very pivotal part of that because of the full moon happening. But before I get into this Aquarius full moon, I want to take a look backwards. Because when I was looking at, the chart, I decided, okay, where have we seen this before? And obviously there was different planetary transits happening, but when I noticed an eclipse happened at this degree point, I couldn't help but say, ooh, this adds a juicy flavor to this full moon. So in February of 2018, we saw the Aquarius Solar Eclipse happen at 27 degrees Aquarius, which is the exact degree point that we see this full moon happening. Why am I bringing this up? Well, when you see a full moon happening at the same degree point that a prior eclipse occurred at, there's going to be some related events transpire. Now, that was a solar eclipse and we're having a full moon. So where's the relation? Well, the beginning of one cycle, the starting of an end of that cycle. I'll give you a real life example. During the Aquarius solar eclipse in 2018, now my midheaven is at 28 degrees Aquarius, okay? That eclipse hit my midheaven, and essentially that was the beginning of the end of my marriage, okay? 6 months later, my ex-husband moved out during the Aquarius full moon. And so that is the chapter, the bigger chapter, that I've been living in. The being single and, divorced and, a single mom. My status changed during that time. And selfishly, I'm looking at this full moon and I'm saying, ooh, what can transpire now? Because I'm not married. I am not looking to change my full-time job. If anything, I'm looking to make YouTube my full-time job at some point. But I have some growth to do before I get there on this channel. But I also want to note that we're going to see this energy be significant in the future as well, because in February of 2026, we're going to see another Aquarius solar eclipse happen at 28 degrees. So only 1 degree away from where we're seeing this full moon happen. And it's as if it's like, the start, the middle, the end, right? And then in August of 2027, we will see an Aquarius lunar eclipse happen at 24 degrees. Now, obviously the nodes will change, other planets will be in different positions. So, there's a lot of variances that could transpire. But overall, when you see degree points being in focus a couple of times, you have to make a mental note of where you've seen things happen before, so you can kind of prepare yourself of what's to come, okay? Now, as I mentioned, this Aquarius full moon is happening at 27 degrees Aquarius, and we have a lot to talk about with it. I had to make a lot of notes, so yes, I am turning the page on my notes because I don't want to forget anything. First and foremost, we have the sun at 27 degrees of Leo. The asteroid Vesta did cazimi the sun, and they are currently conjunct during the full moon. And we also see Mercury retrograde just a couple of degrees away from them. So Mercury retrograde is an important factor. Why is it an important factor? Well, when Mercury went into shadow in mid-July, we were near the same degrees as we see Mercury at now. We also were in the middle of a blue moon cycle and had that second Capricorn full moon happen shortly after Mercury started its shadow. So what were you beginning or trying to end in mid-July that has been delayed since in the past month? Because I think this full moon is going to help give a boost to what you're trying to begin or what you're trying to end, what chapter you're trying to, move on to. There may have been a lot of setbacks. When we're talking about Aquarius energy and a full moon in Aquarius, we're talking about, an air sign, very much logic focused, in the headspace, thinks about things, and communicates things very bluntly. When we see the sun in Leo, we're talking about the heart space. So with the full moon, with the sun in Leo, especially with Vesta conjuncting the sun, we're talking about what our heart and soul feels and what ignites our heart and soul, what we're devoted to. That's what Vesta's energy is all about. And so it's like we're getting that, that burning light of, what do I really feel, like that's igniting the passion inside of me. Mercury retrograde wants to talk about it, but may have not known how to work out the details, especially because the retrograde started in Virgo. And Virgo is very analytical and detail oriented. And Mercury retrograde, may have been getting caught up in all the details. Like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to work this out? How is this going to happen? And, what if this and what if that? And may have been, I like to say, lost in the sauce. So looking at the full moon, we already are talking about a lot of depth behind this, with Vesta conjuncting the sun, Mercury retrograde only a couple degrees away. And on top of that, we have the ruler of the full moon making a square to it. Uranus is at 27 degrees. So we have Uranus squaring the full moon. And Uranus is about, the higher mind. It's the higher octave of Mercury. And Uranus can bring us sudden insights, a sudden turn of events. This could be, shakeups and breakups and, things that you don't expect. And, this is not all bad, because Uranus can also bring breakthroughs through the shakeups, through the sudden, insight that you may have, or as the spiritual community calls it, downloads, right? You may all of a sudden just one day wake up and say, oh my God, I got it. I figured it out. This is how I'm going to do this. It's like something just comes to you and you realize, holy crap, I could get out of this mess. I know what I got to do. And, that can very much be what was needed, that sudden insight or sudden information or something to be, disturbed in some way in order for you to make a change. On top of having the square to Uranus, we see a couple other squares happening. And they are T-squares. So they are very much a push for change to happen. T-squares are turning points. And I always say with T-squares, you have to look at that middle connecting planet to see what you need to tap into to get through the opposing energies, to get through the challenges. And what am I talking about? Well, Venus. Venus is making an opposition to Saturn, and Venus is squaring Mars and Jupiter. Now, Venus in Virgo is in her fall, so she doesn't have a lot of power, or as much power as she will have when she goes into Libra, one of her ruling signs. And her making a square to Mars, I mentioned this in last week's video, is bringing a lot of tension between masculine and feminine energies. But it's bringing tension to help bring resolve and change. And as Venus finishes her square to Mars, she's going to start, making that exact square to Jupiter. And so it's, Venus in Virgo is very much, wants to clean up the home, right? So for example, say you're on vacation, you're staying at an Airbnb, and you realize the family's made a mess of the place, and you got to check out tomorrow morning before you go home, and you're like, oh my goodness, we can't leave this like this. We have to clean it up. Venus in Virgo, wants to clean up the space, make it, whole again, and, put it back to where it needs to be before she can go home to Libra, right? So it's very much like a preparatory time. Clean up the details in your life, especially when we're talking about a full moon happening during this time where the connection is being made, because it's like, before you can close something out, or before you can begin something, especially emotional beginning, you need to clean some things up. You need to work out the details. Now, Venus opposing Saturn is feeling restricted. And Saturn's in Pisces. So Saturn, wants us to do the spiritual work, the inner work. Pisces is very much about, our inner world, our spiritual side, our subconscious, and Saturn wants us to do things the right way, wants to play by the rules. And, so it's like, Venus may be tired in Virgo, right? Too tired to really do all this deep cleaning work. And Saturn's like, yeah, but no, if you don't put this place back together the way that you found it, you're going to get penalized and you're going to have to pay for it, right? That's the kind of energy that you can see. If you don't do things the right way, you're going to have to pay for it down the line. So, you can't skip around this. You have to, clean up the details. You have to work out, what needs to be organized in the right manner in order for you to go on your next journey or to go home, right? Venus squaring Jupiter very much, has that similar energy where, Jupiter wants to bring expansion, wants to bring opportunity. And this, Jupiter is also in its fall in Gemini. So we have two planets in square to each other, both in their fall. They're both not strong. And it's like, Jupiter's like, hey, Venus, they're two great benefics, right? They want harmony and peace and, optimism, but they're both tired. They're not home. They're not where they excel, and so this could be very much an energy where you feel deflated, or you may feel like God, am I ever going to get through this? But you are, because the astrology is always changing. The planets are always moving. This is temporary energy. I want you to keep that in mind as you go through this week, and until we get through Mercury retrograde especially. This kind of energy, when I was thinking about everything that's going on, especially with Venus being involved with the square to Mars, square to Jupiter, opposing Saturn, it just hit me, Uranus, that this could very much be, a situation where maybe you have to negotiate a deal, or you're involved in some kind of legal situation, or some kind of, formal legalities are involved, where you're trying to resolve it. You're trying to get through it, and you're bumping into roadblocks. People aren't agreeing with each other, and and things are getting delayed, especially in Mercury retrograde. And you're just like, I just want this over with. I don't even care anymore. Like, I just want to get through this so I can move on, right? This is so like this energy, especially with Mercury retrograde. You just want to go. But Mercury retrograde is like, no. We got to work out all the details. We got to talk about, what we're compromising here. This is, whatever it is that you're feeling, this roadblock, feeling a setback, a restriction, a delay from, something that you're trying to get through in order for you to have a new beginning, right? Because we had that once in a lifetime blue moon happened last month, right? With the Capricorn full moons back to back. That was bringing in something rare, an opportunity that you may have wanted to take, but then something got in the way. And now you're like, I just want to get back to that opportunity that came my way. Like, I don't want to deal with all this crap. But you have to deal with it. And once you do, you'll be able to get back on track, especially when we're talking about this super full moon is going to bring us through to the next full moon, which is a lunar eclipse. I feel that this super full moon in Aquarius is like a precursor eclipse, if that makes any sense. I feel like this is a very much preparatory eclipse energy, where it's like, yes, make those changes, make those adjustments, compromise where you need to compromise, but be true to yourself, Leo. Be true to what ignites your heart and your soul and what you want to devote yourself to. Keep that in the forefront, but work out all the things that you need to work out. Organize your life. Clean your shit up. And then you can have that major new beginning when eclipse season starts next month. And before that, I do want to say, we can see the energy lighten up next week, because as Venus is loosening her grip on the square to Mars, the square to Jupiter, we're then going to see Venus make a trine to Uranus and to Pluto by 3 degrees. So I think that is when we will start to see some tangible changes take place. That is when, especially we're talking about Uranus in Taurus, earth sign, Venus in Virgo, earth sign, and Pluto, who loves to transform things, death and rebirth, right? Pluto's in Aquarius, but he's about to get back into Capricorn. And so this is very much a supportive energy for those changes that you're trying to, see happen in your life. So, and coincidentally, that Venus trine to Uranus and Pluto is happening around the time that we see Mercury retrograde come to an end. So it's all lining up for us and pushing us to get through the hard stuff, get through the things that, you know, maybe holding you back. You may feel restricted, you may feel challenged, but once you get through the next week, we're going to have more support for tangible change. And when we're looking at full moon energies, we're looking at more emotional energy, right? And new moon energies are about, you know, new beginnings, not very emotional energy at all. And so when we're looking at the full moon cycles, you know, a full moon in Aquarius who wants independence. Aquarius loves to march to the beat of their own drum and is not afraid to go about things in a different way, is not afraid of change. And so, especially when we're talking about this full moon making a square to Uranus, you know, we are not afraid to do things differently. Or you shouldn't be afraid to do things differently. This is very much being asked of us right now. Because when you do, you will see things come to fruition. So don't be afraid to go about things in a way that you've never done before. Don't be afraid to be different. This is a time to do exactly that. As long as you're honoring what you feel deep down inside, that's true for what you need, for what your heart needs. That is the most important part of this full moon. So if you have to separate yourself from groups or people or, you know, job situations in order to honor your heart, so be it. Because when we honor ourselves, North Node and Aries too, we are honoring our journey. So I hope this video helps you understand not only the current cycle that we're looking at. You know, this isn't just about one day. This is a greater cycle. When we're talking about slow moving planets making connections to each other, when we're talking about Uranus making a square to a full moon, when we're talking about a full moon happening at the same degree point that we saw a solar eclipse happen in the past, this is a greater cycle. This is a much bigger, broader picture. So I don't want you to take a look at Monday and say, oh, nothing's happening. Astrology doesn't make sense. This is not that. This is about bigger cycles. This is about bigger, broader changes. And we are essentially, you know, I think this may even be heavier than the lunar eclipse happening next month, to be honest with you, as far as igniting changes. But I have to take a better look at the chart and spend more time reflecting on what's transpiring during that time. But I feel with all of this energy with the Aquarius full moon, I don't think the eclipse is going to be any more intense than what we're seeing happening now. I think it'll be a much easier energy. So I hope you have a great week. To be honest with you, I'm not sure if I'm going to make another like weekly video for this week, because this full moon energy is the energy of the week. You know, all the connections that I talked about during the full moon time, they will play out throughout the week. So, you know, this is really what we're facing throughout the entire week, you know, and full moon energy can transpire over the span of a couple of weeks. All right. But I hope it prepares you. And I hope that whatever is transpiring in your life, that you get through it with ease and just trust the process, even if it's gruesome. You will get through this. And I will be back with more videos. All right. Stay tuned and just grin and bear through it. Take care, everybody.